thought it'd be bigger.
With one to go after this one, the last one, the final one, they at least better start crossing over characters for the Starfleet Academy show. The penultimate episode of Star Trek Discovery, it's safe to say, has a lot of work to do and a lot of ground to cover. Last week, the ship was left disabled after escaping the Breen with all the clues found. They just had to repair the ship, beat the Breen to the destination, and work out how exactly this life-creating technology works. And this episode does do a lot in the fact that it doesn't do a lot. It goes back to the nonsensical logic we've came to expect from this show, but the one thing that I will say is at least it does have a tighter focus on characters, even if it is mostly in the wrong direction. So let's talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 9. As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review. Thanks for taking the time to choose to watch this channel. If you haven't done it already, subscribe, and if you make it all the way to the end of the video, leave a like as well. So, Saru's back. Do you remember him? So I guess he is going to make the finale by using a shuttle with a new Pathfinder drive to negotiate with the Breen. And I bet you forgot about the Pathfinder drive that they mentioned all the way back in episode 1, didn't you? Now, I did mention last week that a bit of the criticism that I had of the episode is that once Discovery escaped the Breen, they didn't contact Starfleet for help, but it seems that they've done this in between episodes and brought them up to speed, but they don't mention any other ships being sent to help Discovery or take over their side quest in action to save the universe, which I think is a little bit weird. Because Starfleet does mention that there's now a Breen fleet on their way, so tension. But Discovery still has to lick its wounds with the Spore drive being out of commission, and they said that the navigation system doesn't work, but the way that I understood this was that Stamets kind of is the navigation system, because he controls where they jump and no one else apart from Book really can. I mean, is it just me, or were you under that impression as well? Let me know in the comments below. But they decide to try a jump anyway and end up on the rim of a black hole. Sorry, make that 2 black holes because double tension. And they find the progenitor technology that they need, which is of course stuck between the 2 black holes or the Legrange point in the middle, which is the name of the episode, so someone read a scientific term, they just didn't understand how it works. And when you see the progenitor's technology, I mean, was it just me or was it a little underwhelming? I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe something like the proto-molecule in the Expanse, but not this. I mean, even Reece comments on it as well in the episode. But the Breen arrive and steal the magical mystery box with the technology, so what they've got to do this episode is do an Ocean's 11 on a great big ship and get it back. So this episode, for at least a little bit of it, is Ocean's 11 in space. The puzzle pieces are the key to the device, literally, and of course they handed it over last week, so the Breen hold all the cards. We do find out what the vision book from the labyrinth told Michael, that there would be one final problem that they had to solve, but at this point, does anyone really care? So they want to sneak on board the Breen ship to steal the tech rather than sneak on board the Breen ship and blow it up. I mean, I've said this again and again throughout this season, is she knows the future and she knows where this could go. If she kept Mol prisoner, killed her, killed the Breen or engaged the Breen in any number of ways, she would avoid this future, but Michael Burnham seems keen on running head onto it because the plot and of course the wannabe tension demands it. So they decide to use the old classic manoeuvre of dressing up as Breens once they board the ship, but won't they still scan as humans and trills or whatever? I mean, again, doesn't really make sense. Anyway, on the Breen ship itself, Mol opens a magical box and, well, we don't see what's inside, just a light. The box looks like it's some sort of Stargate, apparently, so I guess it's going to transport them to some other place in space, time, or dimensions. But God, I miss Stargate. Do you remember Stargate? I mean, do you remember good sci-fi shows from like 10, 15 years ago? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway. Also, another thing that doesn't make sense in this episode is once they have the technology, the Breen ship just sits there. They don't warp to somewhere safe, or warp to hide, or warp to reinforcements. They just sit and wait, even though they know that Starfleet are working on recovering this device as well. And the reason for this is so the story can happen, of course. And then, once Burnham and the crew go on board the Breen ship, we get an Iron Man point of view from inside the suits. And speaking personally, I think audiences are sick of this, and I don't get why you would do something that's so iconic from another franchise, from such an iconic character. And I also don't get, when they're in the Breen suits, why do their displays read as Breen and not English? Like, because no one else is seeing it other than them, so it can say whatever in any language. Did you notice that? Let me know. Also, another logic problem this has is all the way through the episodes, they're talking to each other in the suits over comms, but for some reason, no one outside the suits can hear them unless the plot demands it. And this whole thing with the infiltration of the Breen ship is no tension, no stakes whatsoever, at least just for me. The episode at certain points does feel a little bit tighter towards the end, but it's still all over the place. And the fact that we only seen the away team and the Iron Man angle probably means it wasn't even the actors in the suits most of the time doing this. But the Breen discover the Discovery crew, and Raynor decides to try and engage Mol, at least on a talky, chatty level. And you know that I like Raynor, he's one of the plus points of this season. In fact, maybe even the only plus point given the lack of Saru that we've had this year. But this scene just didn't work for me either. The Breen have enemies on the way as well, so yeah, why are they still sitting there? Why didn't they escape? And Raynor's solution is for Mol to surrender herself to Starfleet so that they can protect them. And how would that even work? We've seen that Starfleet can't even beat one Breen ship, let alone a fleet, and they've been terrified of the Breen the entire season. So why would they offer to protect someone, basically putting a sheet of paper in front of a hail of bullets? That, to me, just doesn't work.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
So when Mol rejects Raynor's plan, he comes up with a rather obvious one, which is, hey, let's engage that massive ship that pasted us in 2 seconds last week after we've been badly damaged, which, by the way, the damage and the repairs don't really get mentioned more than 10 to 15 minutes beyond this episode, if that. And you really got to suspend disbelief, logic and common sense at this part, because again, the Breen ship is the size of a starbase or several starbases, and Discovery is tiny compared to it. So while Raynor is engaging the Breen ship, Michael is battling Mol, and Mol does the only logical thing you can do to escape. She jumps inside the artifact and Michael follows her. So is it just going to be the two of them for most of the big finale of this show, or at least half of it? With one to go, the finale has got a lot of work to do. Saru needs to show up, they need to work out how to find Burnham and get to wherever she is, and they need to find out how the life-altering tech works, because remember, they still don't have any idea about that. And I'm not sure what I was expecting this week, but it wasn't this. Like the rest of the season, the episode felt disjointed, but at least they kept solid focus on the characters that were in it, apart from Colbert. And remember, he's kind of dropped that whole what's my life about story arc that's been going on. It's been absent the last 2 or 3 episodes. But I still can't believe how slow the pace is leading into the finale. They don't seem keen to answer anything or keep asking the whole meaning of life question, and the very nature of this technology should create those sorts of discussions. And as I said at the start of the video, the ship was left disabled last week after escaping the Breen with all the clues found. They just have to repair the ship and beat the Breen to the destination and work out how all life was created using this tech, and they've done none of that this week at all. But the worst part is, this wasn't even the worst episode of Star Trek Discovery this season. That still stands with last week and the whole Mind Labyrinth thing. If this episode had fitted in around 3, 4 or 5, it would have been a fun heist romp, but a setup for a season finale and the show's finale, it just didn't work at all. And I haven't even mentioned the entire scene where Michael decides to stop the mission and talk to Book about her feelings, because that wasn't resolved from last week. We learn almost nothing this week. No one really questions what any of this means or says, hey, when we find this tech, shouldn't we just destroy it because it's that dangerous? Why aren't people talking like this? I don't really know. The show is limping to the finish line rather than sprinting, and considering all the side questing is now over, it gave the writers a chance to do anything this week, and they chose to do nothing with it. The action wasn't there, the tension wasn't there, and even Rayner, who's been the only good staple this season, wasn't particularly that good either. But that's just my opinion, and it didn't do much for me. Also, I don't get why they're not trying to set up the Starfleet Academy spin-off show or Section 31 show a little bit more. We might get some of that in the finale, in the final scenes. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But it's safe to say that Star Trek Discovery's buzz is at an all-time low for me with only one episode to go. But as always, I want to know what you guys think. What's going to happen next week with this finale, and what did you think of this episode? Am I right in that there's all these logic gaps? Let me know in the comments, or you can reach out to me on Twitter at The Geeks Reviews. If you've made it this far, leave a like on the video, and if you haven't done it already, subscribe to the channel. And as always, my name's Al. Thanks for watching. The penultimate